you should never just put a bum on a seat.
So always hire people who are better than you.
There's only so much you can build culture from the top.
It's so important to get the right people into your business.
Vodafone have brought us here today to talk about company culture. So how can small businesses create and maintain a positive, motivating work environment amongst all the other things that we've got going on? Hey, I'm Gulliver. I run a creative content agency called Sunday Treat with my co-founder Ollie. We started it because we just loved working with clients, we loved creating really nice creative work, and we felt like we needed a bit more of structure and a platform to do it on with the business. But everything at Sunday Treat is centered around this idea of find the fun. So that means that we create fun, dynamic work, but it also means that we bleed that into our culture every day at work as well, and genuinely have a lot of fun doing what we do.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I am the founder of WWLD, which is a bespoke people and culture consultancy. I've been running the business since 2019, and I have a wonderful portfolio of small to medium-sized businesses that I help through the whole employee life cycle. And the reason why I did it, I'd been in-house predominantly in media and advertising for probably 14, 15 years, and I just wanted to have a bigger impact. That's me, that's where I started, and we're 6 years in.
Hey, my name is Emma. I am co-founder of Hip Hop. We make really good, really tasty pop with real fruit, real ingredients, real benefits, a little bit of a gut health slant, stocked in places up and down the land, and we're on a mission just to make really delicious drinks that just happen to be that little bit better. So we're on a journey, and I'm really excited to be here today and find out a little bit more about your teams and how you do what you do.
I mean, I think culture builds itself, really. There's only so much you can build culture from the top, and I think that if you hire the right people, that culture spreads and just has a life of its own in a really, really wonderful way, actually. My background was in indie filmmaking, and so we've got that real indie filmmaking fire. You know, you're only as good as your last job. You got to keep on grinding, and we've tried to permeate that into the culture of Sunday Treat, and I think that's worked quite well for us. It's a bit scrappy, but I've enjoyed it, and that's definitely something that we never planned for at Sunday Treat, but it's just completely happened organically.
So I think that's really quite interesting. Yes, I think most of the time it is organic, but I think as founders and leaders, you need to be a little bit intentional. And I think the intention part of it is around, you do have to lead, or you have to, when we're talking about hiring, you have to be hiring not just for skill sets anymore, but actually for purpose and value alignment. And I think that's really, really key, more so in smaller businesses, startups, because you will find those nuggets of people that will absolutely behave like they are a co-founder, and you get all of that energy. But actually, to enable the growth and the continuation of a culture, we need to make sure we're hiring the right people.
Yeah, at Sunday Treat, our number one rule when we're hiring is don't hire for the skills, hire for the person, because people can always develop skills. And also I think that one of the benefits of working in a smaller company is that you can actually evolve the skills and the roles over time. And I think people really appreciate that within their role, because if they find actually they're finding one part of their job much more interesting than another, you can start to move them more into that role. And I know that's a benefit that is harder to find in much larger organizations, but you're so right. You want to hire for the personality and the people rather than the skills.
I think for us, we're trying to create something, create a great place where people want to be. I was really interested how you sort of talked about that scrappiness, because hip hop is still pretty scrappy, but we're kind of trying to be a lot more grown up and think more consciously about culture and how we do things. And we still have got that startup edge, and lots of people in the business who we were talking before who behave like it's their business, which is brilliant when you find those magical people.
Yeah.
But you've got to be careful not to take advantage of that, because they're not founders.
Yeah.
And you need to respect that and look out for them.
I think communication's really, really key. And I think transparency as much as we can. Like, let's not give them all the nitty-gritty detail they don't need to know. Of us acting like swans above the water and probably paddling away under the water. But I think that you you need to be transparent as far as you can, and consistency. Like, when we are setting up these rituals that we might do as part of what we believe is the right thing to do as our culture, it's consistency. As busy as it is, let's make sure those things keep on happening, because that's how those behaviours will start to embed.
When I started Sunday Treat, I was terrified to talk about the financials of the business, because I felt like it would look like we were charging all this money for these projects and taking all that as profit, which wasn't the case at all, because, there's so many expenses that come with running a company. But I just didn't want to get into that detail. I was just nervous for the team to see those figures.
So I was the same. I was really scared to share the numbers. I share them now, but with context to explain to everybody why we are where we are and how we're making progress. But it is scary.
We're now totally transparent on all the numbers, and we've got all the project budgets on all of the project boards, so everyone can see it, and it just feels so much better, And the team have an understanding now of all the different costs that are built into the company, and the savings that we have as a company to be able to protect it in the future, and it's great. It's a much better way of working. What are the challenges with maintaining team culture when you're working remote?
I think that it comes with a lot of challenges. I think it's good challenges and interesting ones. I think in-person culture is probably the glue that holds it together. I think that remotely, I think there can be some challenges in terms of those natural in-person conversations that you might have in the kitchen making a cup of tea in the morning. I always talk about learning through osmosis as well, so you may not necessarily be in a formal learning environment, but actually you might be sat next to somebody and you're overhearing the conversation they're having with a client, with someone else, those kind of things. So I think, for me, that's the biggest challenge. I also think, when I talked briefly earlier about all of the different tech comms channels that we may all be using, whether it's instant messenger, it's a Slack, it's an email, it's WhatsApps, it's all of those, and just, I think sometimes the message doesn't probably come across in the right way. We all probably are quite guilty of reading something in the mood that we're currently in. So if something's going on, we read it with a bit more of an angry tone, and that person probably didn't mean it at all. So I think, again, it's just that, and I think that we've come such a long way, and I think COVID's been the enabler there. We had to almost digitalise overnight and have our remote workforces.
Do you find that picking up the phone is almost like a bit of a superpower sometimes, because so many people don't do it? And even, when you're thinking about culture and you've got remote teams and people working in different places, I've learnt that just picking up the phone and just having a chat with a member of the team who's not there sort of one-to-one, it makes a huge difference.
And I think that helps with that relationship, to your point, if they're not physically in the office with you, where there are lots of different touch points that can help build upon your culture. It's just making sure that they feel connected in other ways. And I think that there's definitely more opportunity there. And it feels very old school, picking up a phone. Like, I remember the days where we all had desk phones. Don't know if everyone else does, or just me. And so
I do too.
Gully's like, no, what's one of them? What's a landline? But yeah, I agree.
I guess if we're specifically talking about challenges of remote culture as well, the benefits of office work are so great in terms of culture, because your experience is so varied throughout the day. You'll do some laptop time, you'll go into a meeting room, you'll have an all-hands meeting, you'll have lunch together, you might pop out and go to the shops together. And at home, you're just sat in front of your computer. So I think that to replicate a bit of that within your home workspace, it's really nice to pick up the phone, go on Slack huddles, have that little kind of halfway point between home and office if you can. Also mix up where you're sitting in the day as well, so it just feels like you're having more than one experience rather than just being chained to your desk at home all day.
100%. I think also with remote working, when you are working from home, you don't have that separation. You don't have your walk to the station. You don't have your walk home. You don't have that time where you decompress. So absolutely, I think that's a really nice way of looking at it, to replicate almost what's happening in office if you were there.
Yeah. In terms of your work remote office split, what's that like with you guys?
All my clients are really different. I have a social impact brand that technically based in Berlin, but you can work globally wherever you want.
Yeah.
And I think for them, what's really important is that connectivity. So once a week, we call it Weekly Wednesdays, they come together and they talk through everything as a team. They are around 12 people, so it's not huge, but they have been going for a decade, and that has been successful. But you can work wherever you want in the world. I've got other clients that are in person first, so everyone's in the office 5 days a week, and then you have a mix of hybrid. I think it genuinely depends on what the needs are for the business and how you best work, rather than I believe everyone should be this way or the other way.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's listening, trying to be flexible. We have a 3-2 sort of rough-ish policy so we're based in Manchester, so people who are living near the office, sort of 3 days in the office, 2 days out of the office. Obviously then we've got people going on customer visits or whatever, so it kind of varies. In the last sort of 6 to 8 months, we've actively been recruiting people in London and building out that team there. So those guys are all remote working and based at home all the time. We're toying with the idea of having a base in London because of the things that you've talked about, that connectivity, that chance to meet up and share ideas and just be with people from the team. Just figuring that out at the moment. I'm going to steal some of your, I really like your Slack huddle idea.
It's a nice way to think of it,
Yeah,
isn't
I
it?
love that.
And do you find that the people you've got based in London remote are having an effect on the culture in Manchester?
Yeah, they are actually. I think because it encourages more flexibility, you have to think differently. But interesting, the flip side of that, there are a couple of people in the team who I know would actually like an office space in London because they come up to Manchester. So maybe once every couple of weeks, every month, the sales team will come together in Manchester, for example, and they love it. And it's just because we're humans and we love people and we want to be together. So I think there's a happy medium somewhere in there that we're really working it out at the moment, actually, as we go and learn and stuff. So watch this space.
Essentially, if you don't ever meet in person, I feel like the job boils down to the salary, the tasks you do every day, and the line on LinkedIn. And that's not a nice way to think of your job, I don't think. So I think you need that face-to-face time. And I think it's okay to it's possible to have a great culture and work remotely, but I think you need to see each other, a couple of times a month at least.
Yeah. And I think it then goes down to, the example I used was they are a purpose-driven business. So everyone is aligned. Like I always talk about, you should never just put a bum on a seat. Whatever, how desperate your recruitment needs are, it's so important to get the right people into your business because the knock-on effect and some of the more boring stuff around how much does a cost of a hire actually cost a business. It's not just the salary, the NI, the benefits, but it's actually that time it takes to hire, the impact on the business, and then also to train them up. So when you get a hire wrong, and we've all done it, and we'll all continue to make those mistakes or go through those situations, it's the actual impact it has. So I think it's super important to make sure that, to your point, you hire for the person, not for the skills they've got. Obviously, they need to have the relevant skills, some of them, but it's absolutely hiring for that alignment because that's what's going to take you. And when we were talking earlier around sharing the numbers and that transparency between the leadership team and the rest of the team, and I think that also translates into what the bigger picture is. Like if we can be really, as leaders, really clear and transparent about what we're trying to achieve, whether it's short, medium or long term, it really helps that engagement of everyone understanding what part they play in achieving the overarching goal. So it may be a number. Some of my clients, it literally is, we need to hit this number. We are customer-centric this year and revenue-driven to get to the next part, to look at an exit, a sale, whatever it is. But actually, if everyone understands what they need to do and how their specific role, regardless of where it is in the business, how that ladders up is really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's so true.
What do successful founders do to keep their remote teams motivated? Really great question. You both have hybrid workers.
Yeah.
So how do you go about it?
We do at Sunday Treat 2 days in the office, 3 days remote. And I always found, particularly on Monday mornings, there was always a little bit of a struggle for everyone to get engaged. We've all come off the back of a fun weekend and we're clocking into work mode. And the energy was always just a little bit lower because Mondays were always remote because we generally try to have Monday and Friday as working from home. And so we started this thing called the Monday morning meeting. So every Monday at 9 o'clock, we'll take it in turns. We just go around clockwise in the team for someone to do like a quiz or a presentation. It started off a bit more interactive, and we'd replicate game shows and have a lot of fun with that. It would take like half an hour, and now it's moved on to more of a presentation style format, which is working really well. So our Lithuanian video editor did a presentation last week on Lithuanian idioms and what they mean, which is a really nice way to sort of bond with her culture a little bit and understand some of the stuff that she says in the office. And then our South African videographer, he did a presentation recently on big cats in South Africa. So it's a really nice kind of energy boost in the morning just to kind of get the whole team going, and it just gets everyone laughing, and then we just go straight into the project board rundown after that.
I love that. That's a great idea. That's really
Those
cool.
rituals that we talked about earlier, it's so important to have that. And to your point, it's engaging the predominantly remote workers that you have, the employees, and making it authentic about them. It's not, hey, come on a Monday and present about X, Y, Z. It's like, talk to us about you, like the Lithuanianisms, and the big cats. That's awesome. That's they're able to be their authentic selves.
Yeah, it's genuinely made such a difference just for that Monday morning, kick.
Energy.
Yeah.
I think I might adopt that. I might adopt that as well.
Emma's like,
maybe for
getting
Emma,
so many tips.
maybe for you, Emma,
on
that's
this
just
thing.
cracking out a cool can of hip hop, first thing on a Monday morning.
And we've touched on this a little bit already. There's definitely something about picking up the phone and talking to them. And I think that's really important, even more important in a founder-led business, because you are your business. You are the business. I am the product. Every hip hop can has got a bit of me in there somewhere in a weird metaphorical way.
Now. Every time I get one in the office, I'm going,
There's Emma.
There's Emma.
But it started off in my kitchen, and the reason that we built the brand is because the other co-founder, Kenny, has some tummy issues, and I made him some fermented food and drink, and he loved it, and it helped, and we started making it in my kitchen, and it grew from there. And even the kombucha culture that we make now in our massive kombucha making facility came from those little glass jars in my kitchen. So you're sending pieces of it out, and that's what I really want the team to feel and know and understand that and feel part of that culture. That's a culture. It's part of our culture. So I think it's connecting as a founder with the team. Talking about the story, and they are the story too. There are so many people. The reason our business exists is because of the people that have joined the business, and actually lots of them have left, but they've been part of that journey with us. And isn't it nice when you meet people who used to work in your business and they no longer work in your business, but you've still got that connection with them, and it's still there, and you feel it.
Yeah, that's so important.
I think that says something about your culture and who you are as a business and founders and everybody in the team. If you can, because sometimes, and particularly with SMEs, sometimes people leave the business because they've been amazing and they've got the business as far as they can take their role or that part of the business, but then it's time for them to step aside and for somebody else to come in and take it to the next level. And that's really tough when you go through that. It's tough for them massively, and tough for you. And I think it's a testament to the business and the culture if you can get through that and still have a good relationship in the future. Doesn't, I'm not, if I said it was 100% of the time, I'd be a total fibber on a podcast. But most of the time.
Once you've got over the initial shock and the panic about what you're going to do, then I think you're absolutely right, because everyone plays a really important part at a particular part of your journey, and especially the SMEs that are evolving, startups that are accelerating, expanding, evolving. You're right. There are particular people that come into your company for a particular purpose and role. And I think that it says a lot about you as a founder that you can actually understand and champion that part of the journey is over, but you obviously wish them all the very best.
We like to think of it as if you're borrowing people's time. You never own anyone, and it's always got to be right for them as much as it is right for you. And just like you say, it's so fine if that relationship moves on, and always a great testament to the team culture if everyone is still chipping in. And actually at Sunday Treat, it's so nice that we have freelance networks that we work with. And there's a couple of people that used to work at Sunday Treat that we now work with in a freelance capacity. Awesome. And it's always lovely seeing those faces pop up again, Does culture fit matter less in remote teams?
No, I think it's equally as important, if not more, because that cultural fit has to be really ingrained in what they do because they are remote.
I think I might disagree with that a little bit, actually. Ooh. I feel like it does matter less because I feel like the culture is having less of an impact on you every day. I mean, I'm a big proponent for some kind of in-person working. I feel like it's really hard to run a successful company without any element of in-person. And I do think that you can have a very successful remote company, but you've got to meet up sometimes. And I think that, that kind of in-person culture vibe is just so important.
Yeah, I read that question as in not a remote-only business, but for me it would be like expansion, so moving into new markets, those kind of things. How do you integrate people successfully so they feel part of it? And I think that is really important because it takes a certain type of person, to your point. If it is a remote-only business, it may be a particular type of person that doesn't necessarily need to feed into the culture because they're there for a really specific role, particular skill set, if it's, I don't know, I'm not going to developer or whatever it is, then I think that, yes, you're right, but I think that if it is a hybrid and we're looking at remote at times, I think it is really important.
Yeah.
I guess I read that in a similar way. I think it's kind of more important. It's obviously very important for any type of worker, but if you are fully remote, you're out on a limb, you're on your own.
You've got a disadvantage already to some extent.
Yeah, and I guess like we talked about before, we're all people and humans and we thrive off those interactions. So people need to feel belonging, they need to feel like they're part of something. So I think what I'm learning as we are expanding our team who are working more remotely and are out on a limb and not at the mothership, we've really got to think carefully about how to help them feel part of something, how to help them feel part of our mission and be, feel like they're there with us, even though we're 200 miles away or whatever it is. I think it's critical. And because I've seen it, we've had fully remote workers in the business before and it's not really worked because they've felt so isolated and out
I suppose
on a limb.
In a company like yours, it's around, there are such a variety of roles. You're talking around the production, you're talking about the marketing, you're talking about that core head office team as well as in-field sales. So I think it's trying to marry all of those to enable a culture where each of them will thrive in different ways, but ultimately feel connected. I think maybe in like a production situation, it may be slightly different, but obviously you do have remote workers as well.
I'd say one advantage of remote work actually is that you can have a much more geographically diverse team. And so our whole team, apart from one team member, work in London, so you're kind of constricted in some ways there. And actually it would be interesting, we recently took on board someone in New York to build out our New York office, and actually we get to see him a lot because we do a lot of shoots in New York and back and forth. But this is our first time coming up against that stumbling block of geographical limitations in that way. And if you've got a good way of keeping that culture maintained remotely, that can make it easier to expand your team geographically.
And how do you, a question, you might not have the answer for it, but that individual that you just mentioned in New York, how do you do your Monday morning ritual?
We don't at that time on a Monday.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so you have a whole different level of considerations that you've never had before.
Yeah, it's so true. Time zones suck.
Love a time zone.
Especially working with, we work with a lot of American clients, and, it's that flood of emails and Slack messages coming in, as everyone's clocking off, and it's tricky. It is tricky, yeah.
I was thinking of when you were talking about the geographical stuff, because it's a kind of a flip for us in the sense that the centre of the universe is London. It is. London, I love it. It's amazing. It is culturally. Someone said to me in a meeting the other day that London is the cultural beating heartbeat of everything. And I really, even then from the north, I actually agree with that.
I'm for traitor.
Sorry, but it's true. And everything is here and our industry is here. So, before it was easier to remote work or, you couldn't have these teams in such connected ways in different parts of the country, we would have been at a real disadvantage. Whereas now we can really tap into this amazing scene. And in the food and drink industry, there's a lot of young, excited, fantastic, amazing people who are drawn to London because that's where the hub of the industry is. And so it's fantastic for us to sort of be able to absorb that culture and bring that into our business. So it's like a huge advantage.
Yeah, it makes it easier in some ways.
Yeah.
There's a little bit less decision-making fatigue. You're just like, London, that's where it's all at. But then that compounds and becomes a bit of a problem. And I do think that is a bit of an issue that we have in the UK with everything being so London-centric. Yeah, but that's a broader point, really.
Another discussion.
Another podcast.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received when it comes to company culture? If any.
Oh, I've got one actually. Never delegate the hiring process. That is the most important thing. And it's so tempting to not only hire a week, yes, because you're just so busy, because obviously the times that you need someone, you're horribly busy, and the last thing you've got time for is hiring. But it's so tempting to use recruitment companies or outsource your hiring in some way. But actually, I just think hiring is the most important thing you can possibly do within your company. And I think that if you don't have full attention and really strict processes on it, then the whole company can slowly start to collapse.
Somebody said to me relatively recently that as a founder, that is your job.
Yeah.
Finding the right people to join the business, to be part of the culture.
And then keep your team happy, and then the work gets done. Yeah,
I definitely agree in the infancy of your companies. I think when you scale and grow, and if you become too large, then it's probably the impossible, but you will have those teams that will know how you want to hire. But it goes back to my point earlier, like, we don't need bums on seats. It's so important to get the right fit for your business. And if it takes that little bit longer, the fact that you have those really, really rigorous processes in place to make sure that you are recruiting and you're interviewing with consistency. I think that's really key, especially as we employ potential interviews or people within your team that don't necessarily have a ton of interview experience. It's just putting those policies in place to make sure on those processes that everyone has the same experience. No two people should have a different experience in the hiring process. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Myself, Ollie, and our senior account manager, Amy, recently did a hiring process, and there were so many things that we learned from the last one, and we had all these notes. The last one was, a few months ago, and we were like, oh yeah, we had all the... Because there's so many things, like traps you fall into, and it's just really important to note it down every time, build on those processes, and then make sure you're not making the same mistake twice. Yeah.
One useful tip I got from a member of our board is once you've completed the hiring process and you've really thought about the process and the person, and you feel, as confident as you can feel that they're the right person for the job, it's then involving the team in assessing them in the most positive and gentle way that they are the right person to join the culture and join the business, and canvass that opinion from everybody.
Yeah.
Which is a different way of thinking about it to perhaps how we were doing it before. But I think bringing the team in and without, do it with open arms and welcome that person in. But if you think they're not part of the culture and it's not quite right, then shout up. Yeah, I mean, we've had hires come into our business who've got that sort of corporate experience, and they've completely transformed parts of the business. It's been amazing, and we've learned from them. And one thing I remember, the other co-founder, Kenny, he's run a lot of, this is the first business I've ever run. He's sort of been an entrepreneur since he was in nappies kind of person. And one of the things he said to me when we first started the business was always hire people who are better than you.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And I think if you can, and particularly when you're a founder, because you can be a total control freak, right? But if you can let go of that and actively look for those people and bring them in, it's very freeing for you as a founder.
I think you have to get there, though. I see time and time again founders, because it is their baby, is the blood, their own physical blood, sweat and tears, and probably for many years it's been an idea before it came into fruition. But to your point, it's so empowering to be able to relinquish some of that and to bring those expertise in, because you can't be everything to everyone or know everything. I mean, maybe some days, but not all the time and not every day. So I think that absolutely it must be so freeing to be able to go, that's not my bag. I'm going to hire someone better than me because we want to succeed.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I struggle with at Sunday Treat, is letting go.
I think
that those moments that you finally realise you can, it's amazing, really amazing.
What's been the biggest unlock for you in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's been that, actually, realising that things usually go much better if I'm not involved.
Brilliant.
I'm with you.
No, joking. I mean, yeah, I don't know about the biggest unlock. Yeah. I loved signing a lease on our office, actually. It's been great. It's been really nice to have that permanent space for everyone. You know, I think if you've got an office, you're you're part of a team, you've got a place, it's that second place in your life. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Emma, what's been your biggest unlock as a founder?
And bringing a CEO in to run the business and letting go, and having that realisation for both myself and the other co-founder Kenny that we're founders, so we're really good at getting things going, we're really good at being scrappy, we're really good at doing the big inspirational speech, which really does motivate people culturally, but actually what people need culturally is a sort of framework and really clear objective thinking about the culture, which as a founder I'm probably not as good at. The intention is there and the intent, and I want to put my arms around all these people and motivate them and do all that good stuff, but the systematic thinking of how you build it into an organisation isn't necessarily the way that my brain works, because I'm kind of on to the next thing, and so recognising that, bringing that CEO into the business has transformed what we do.
It's especially interesting as well when we as an agency are blending our culture with our clients' cultures, and we need to adapt to the different ways that they work. And we work with everything from the biggest tech companies in the world like Google and Snapchat to tiny charities based in London that we're doing some pro bono work with, and everything in between. And it's so interesting to sort of adapt our ways of working. And that works well enough when you've got a team of under 10 people, because everyone can just roll their sleeves up and get involved. But actually now we're at that inflection point where we're growing and we can't just rely on everybody knowing everything at all times, and we need a bit more structure and process, and then fitting our structure and process into our clients' very individual, unique structures and processes. It's a good challenge, and we like working it out genuinely. But I think that's something that we're going to really, that's an interesting challenge that we're going to have over the next couple of years.
Do you have a person that you bring in to support with HR and culture, or do you have an employee who looks after that at the minute? Or?
We actually don't, so it's nice to meet you.
Hi.
No, we've never had any catastrophic HR issues.
Don't wait till
touch
then,
wood.
Gulliver.
And Ollie and I are pretty good on that side of things, but I think that we definitely do lean on some freelance help when we needed it in the past a little bit here and there. But yeah, it's at what point do you need? That's an interesting question, actually. At what point in terms of headcount do you feel like you need to have someone whose sole responsibility is people and culture?
Good question. I don't think there is an answer. I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve, how you're building your business, and what your strategy is, what your short, mid, and long-term strategies are. And I think that obviously that's why fractional support helps in these small businesses. But I think that you obviously get to a certain size where you will need that in-house support, even the day-to-day, compliance, admin, those kind of things. And you will get to a point as a founder where, to your point, Emma, it's not in your wheelhouse. It doesn't come naturally. And actually, where are your efforts best placed? What's bringing the most value? Is it you struggling through understanding how are we approaching culture next year? How do we implement? How do we embed it? How do we make sure that everyone is living and breathing what we're trying to strive to achieve? I think that's the point where you go, let's bring some people. And it might not be one person. It probably is a portfolio of lots of different people bringing in their skill set. To Emma's point, you've got to bring in people that are experts in their field that can do it better than you can. So whether that's You know, when we go down learning and development, like, is it leadership training? You know, you've brought together or you've grown. And a lot of times with SMEs is that you don't tend to find that they've automatically got the funds to pop up a senior leadership team. What tends to happen is people kind of grow through the ranks. That's awesome, but it's also going to come with its challenges. They're probably their first time in leadership roles. What does that mean? They may have only ever experienced one type of management. So all those kind of things will come into play, as well as the nicer stuff or the more fun stuff like the culture and how do you build all of those things.
Can I ask a question about how you guys view freelancers in terms of culture? Because we have 11 people full-time, but we have about the equivalent financially of another 11 full-time people in freelance support. And for me, like, the most important part when we're working with freelancers is their vibe, their energy. Are they bringing that Sunday treat fun to every project that we work on? And could they feel like they just fit right into the team? And if they don't, then we don't work with them. So, like, how do you like to view culture within freelancers? Because you might only get to work with them, you know, a couple of times a year, but they're still representing your company and they're still having an effect on your internal team's culture.
I think it's really important, but I also think it depends on the role they're coming in to do. So if it is something super niche, super specific, compliance or something like that, that isn't necessarily, they're not in the business a huge amount of time, or they're here to do something really specific. I don't want to point at job titles or things like that, but I think that probably matters less. But to your point, if you're bringing in people that are representing, so in your field, you know, you've got a production team, they need to be a good cultural fit because they are representing you out in the world, wherever it may be, whether it's in the States, whether it's in the UK. So I think that, yes, I think the majority of the time it is as important to make sure there's the right fit, but I think there will be certain elements of certain roles that there may be less of an emphasis. I don't know about you, Emma.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think it depends on the role. It depends how frequently they consult for you or they're part of your team. We've just hired someone who is not on PAYE, but he'll be working for us 4 days a week. So he's part of the team because he's such a, you know, he's with us most of the time and he's representing the business and he's going out there and he needs to understand what we're about. We do other things, so we work with field teams who go out and drop our drinks in coffee shops or restaurants, and then we might, you know, they might be acting on behalf of other brands at the same time, and that's an interesting one because they still need to be hip hop and be get real and walk in there and wow everybody with their vivacity and their bubbles and all that sort of stuff. So it's how do you impart that into those people who work for somebody else and are working for different brands as well.
It's hard to put your finger on those, isn't it? Because it's not like everyone who works in a company is the same. Like, culture is a hard thing to define like that. Like, tech companies call themselves Googlers and things, and we, as Sunday Treat, have also colloquially been called treaties sometimes. But I wouldn't say that you know, having a relationship with Sunday Treat, whether you work for Sunday Treat or you're a freelancer for Sunday Treat, means that you have a certain set of characteristics. It's a hard thing to put your finger on. It just means that you fit into the team, you represent the team.
I think there's got to be a level of alignment.
Yeah.
And I think that will always be what pulls you together. So to your point, it doesn't need to be a set of characteristics, but understanding what the mission is that you're trying to achieve, I think is really important.
And wanting to be part of that mission. Like you've got to want to do it in an SME.
Yeah.
I don't know what the tipping point is and how many staff it is where that, if that changes. I feel like it shouldn't, but I feel like you've got to be like there for the same thing, haven't you? People have got to feel it like you feel it.
We spend most of our time at work, so you've absolutely got to have fun and love it.
Don't you find like culture clash in some ways just brings so much fun to an organisation? In some ways, like, you know, our amazing accountant John, who had a whole career at Lloyds Bank before he, you know, came to Sunday Treat and did our accounts, you know, just the attitude that he has to some of the things we do is just so hilarious, you know, and it's actually a really nice kind of way to bring an energy and understand different people's perspectives, you know.
How do you handle conflict?
I think you've got to handle conflict quickly. Don't let it fester. You've got to jump on it straight away. And you have to be candid from a place of kindness. So you have to be very honest about how you're feeling. And some of the moments I've enjoyed the most, actually, in my work is when a team member comes to me and they've said, "You fucked up here." I find it really tricky when you are missing this or not going back to this. And I love that because it shows that they are being vocal with their criticism, and everybody has criticisms, right? And as a founder, you know that you're being criticized, and if you're not being criticized to your face, you're being criticized behind your back. So we've always tried to foster a culture of absolute candor in Sunday Treat. If something comes up, address it as soon as you can, just in a very direct but kind way. And I think that's much easier in person. I think that it should rarely be done over text. If you're remote, it should be done by the phone. But sometimes I think even if it's like a day that you leave it, the situation changes and that's too late. I literally think you just have to do it in that moment. And it always ends up, resolving in a much better way if you can just talk about it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy environment that you've created, that people feel. I think sometimes there is that hierarchical split where people might not necessarily feel they can be honest with their founders because they're running the show. So I think that's really, really, really healthy that you have that within your business. And I think I'm literally going to say the same. It is feedback. It's creating that feedback culture where people feel, I'm going to sound really HR-y, the psychological safety. So knowing that they're not going to be reprimanded for whether it's feedback to a senior person or the most junior person. It doesn't matter regardless. But to your point, it's around respectfully doing it. It's around utilising facts. Keep it, none of this has to be emotional. I know emotions run high a lot of the time. But to your point, I think, yes, in the moment is really important rather than 3 weeks last Tuesday when you have your notes catch up, you did this, or there are still businesses out there that do annual reviews. So last February, there was an incident where you did this and it wasn't great. It was like, great, that was nearly a year ago. Like, what? So it's definitely in the moment, but I think do take that step back and make sure that you are level-headed about it and that you're doing it respectfully. There's clear examples as well, and also some solutions. I think that sometimes they need solutions, or you're asking for what the solution is. It's doing it in the right way, but absolutely in the moment.
And that's why I phrased it as kindness as well, because it's like it's the less kind thing to not tell someone if they're 100%. Underperforming, for example, or if there's some issue. If I had spinach in my teeth this entire thing and you hadn't told me, Lisa, it might have been embarrassing for me when I found out. But it would be the kind of thing in the long run. I think it's really important just to be very direct.
How do you manage conflict that you see in your team between, say, a couple of members of the team in conflict with each other? How have you dealt with that? Again,
I would encourage them to talk to each other at the earliest convenience, but I think it can be really useful to have a bit of a sounding board or event with your line manager or your mentor. Everyone in Sunday Treat has a line manager and a mentor, and it's a nice kind of delegation like that. But I think that it's okay to encourage a bit of venting and sort of like sounding board to feel if your frustrations are warranted, but ultimately it's up to you to chat to the person you have an issue with as soon as possible, and generally when that happens, everything is resolved quite quickly, I find.
Yeah, I think it's about constructive. It's being constructive. I think venting to an extent, but I think there has to be the rationale behind it. Like, this has come about.
Yeah.
These are my frustrations. And again, it's just having a healthy balance of that feedback and understanding that it comes from a place of kindness. It comes from a developmental perspective as well. So it's not just, you really annoyed me this week and I just want to scream at you. It's actually why, what's the impact? And there's lots of models that people can utilise and practice and those kind of things to understand how to position it. And everyone's different, right? So I know that you said like a lot of it is face-to-face. I think that's really important. But sometimes there are people that need to listen and absorb, so they may not necessarily automatically be able to respond to you because naturally they have to absorb it before they come up with a solution. There are other people that really find it uncomfortable if you were to be really direct with them face to face. So I think, and also some people that need it reinforced at a later date. So whether that's sounding really HR, whether you follow it up in writing or whatever it is, you have to understand and you have to tailor it.
So they can take a bit of time to think about it because they might not be as good as absorbing it.
Or it's like, hey, let's sit down. I wanted to chat through X, Y, Z. So they can prepare ahead of time because not every individual will react in the same way.
That's so true.
And I think it's just tailoring. It's about anything in communication, leadership, management. It's tailoring it to the individual to get the most out of them.
That's so true, yeah.
I think you've said a lot of the things that I would say. Is just about dealing with it immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like immediately, and don't let it fester.
And also definitely criticise in private and praise in public, I think, is really helpful.
And don't do it on Slack or on email or WhatsApp. Pick up the phone, go for a coffee, just meet them and talk to them.
Human about it, right?
Yeah.
That's all anyone's asking for.
Yeah. WhatsApp's one too many platform creeping into work, isn't it? It's just, sometimes it just does, though.
I think the number one thing I would do again when it comes to culture is think about culture from the minute that I started the business up, really, really consciously, because I think we would be a lot further ahead compared to where we are now.
I think the number one thing I would do again when it comes to culture is just always remember that it's the people that build the culture. It doesn't always come from the top. If you hire the right people, they build out that culture in ways that you can never imagine.
So I think the number one piece of advice that I'd give to founders when looking at culture would be that it's not there, it doesn't have to be defined forever. So I think that it's really important to, when you're starting your business, to have an opinion and how you would like to evolve it, but then it has to be an evolution. People are your biggest asset and it has to reflect through the business.
100%.